The silence can be heavy, not the kind that rests gently on a peaceful morning, but the kind that lingers like a question with no answer. The kind that follows prayers whispered into the void, with no echo, no sign, no change. And in that silence, the soul wonders, ... have I been forgotten? There are moments when heaven seems sealed, when even your tears feel unnoticed, and when every effort to reach upward feels like a stone sinking in deep waters. These are the moments where silence stretches long, where your heart begins to reason, with fear instead of faith. But hear this now, the silence was never my absence. It was the womb of something greater. It was where I covered you when you were too fragile to walk, where I breathed over you even when you didn't know how to breathe on your own. In the silence, I was not gone. I was closer than ever. I saw every sleepless night you tried to hide. With a smile, I counted every tear that fell into your pillow. I heard the words you never dared to speak aloud. Not one cry of your soul escaped me. Not one sigh was wasted. I was there when you said, I can't do this anymore. I strengthened your steps. When you asked, why is this happening? I was already moving pieces you could not see. When you said, I am alone, I wrapped you in a presence too deep for words. In the silence, you were being reshaped. There are things that only grow in hidden places. Roots, character, deep trust. There are strengths formed only when every other voice goes quiet. There is a kind of faith that only rises in darkness, the kind that doesn't rely on feeling, but on knowing. Knowing that I am who I said I am. You thought I had forgotten you, because the answer did not come when you expected. But my time is not delay. My time is precision. And in every second of that silence, I was preparing what you had prayed for, not just to come, but to come full. What you didn't know is that while you sat in the silence, I was fighting for you in realms unseen. I was silencing every voice that tried to lie to you. I was defending your destiny, protecting your purpose. Some of the greatest miracles begin with silence. The silence before creation, the silence before resurrection, the silence before the chains break. I have always moved in silence before glory. So no, I did not forget you. In fact, it was in that very silence that I wrote the next chapter of your story. You were never abandoned. You were being guarded. You were being preserved. You were being trained to walk by faith and not by sight. I never stopped loving you, not for a second. When others turned their backs, I kept my eyes on you. When the world rushed past you, I paused for you. When you gave up on yourself, I remained steady in my hope for you. There is something sacred in the waiting. There is something holy in the silence. The wilderness you wandered in was not punishment, it was preparation. I was leading you through unfamiliar land so that you would learn the sound of my footsteps. I was quiet so that when I speak again, you would know without a doubt that it is me. Every promise I made to you still stands. Not one has expired. Not one has faded. Not one was ever given in vain. I don't speak to fill space. I speak to fulfill purpose. And now, you are ready to hear what you couldn't bear before. Now, your heart is tuned to frequencies it had never known. Now, you can carry what once would have crushed you. I will speak again, but even before I do, know this, the silence did not separate us. It deepened us, and I was there all along, watching from afar, but holding you, carrying you, loving you in ways that no words could explain. So breathe deep, let go of the fear that I abandoned you. That fear was never from me. Instead, lift your eyes, look around. The signs of my love are everywhere, in the way your heart still beats, in the way new strength has formed in your weakness, in the peace that returns even without answers. You are not forsaken, you are not forgotten, you are chosen, seen, known, and loved. And even in the silence, I was always with you and I always will be. There is a quiet glory in rising again after the silence, a sacred hush in the heart that knows now that presence is deeper than noise, and intimacy is not measured by constant sound, but by eternal nearness. The silence you feared was abandonment was actually a holy space where I poured gold into the cracks you thought would never heal. You didn't see it, but in the stillness, I built strength. I was softening your heart, not because it was weak, but because it had grown weary under pressure. I was reshaping the landscape of your soul, where every broken place would one day bloom with grace. Every unanswered prayer was not forgotten. It was planted to grow at the appointed time, planted to bear fruit when you were ready to carry it with joy and not fear. And now, slowly, the roots have taken hold. You will begin to see the first sprouts, not just in your circumstances, but in who you are becoming. This is not just about what you asked for, this is about what I have made of you while you waited. You are not fragile like glass. You are resilient like a tree that bends with the storm but never breaks. And now you are rising, not because the silence is over. But because you have learned to listen with your spirit, because you no longer wait for signs to know that I am near, because my word has become your breath, your strength, your foundation, that there is still more ahead, but it will not feel like before. Now you walk differently. Now you love deeper. Now you trust, not because you have seen, but because you believe. This is the gift of the silence. It gave you me, in a way you never knew you needed. And now that you know how to hear me in stillness, you will never fear silence again. Because now you know. It was never empty. It was holy, and it changed everything. The silence prepared you for a revelation that sound could not deliver, because some truths must be etched on the soul, not shouted. Through the air, in stillness, you gained sight, not of the world, but of my heart. In stillness, you learned to walk not by lights around you, but by the fire I lit within you. That fire is still burning, and now it begins to shine. I am not calling you to return to who you were before the silence. I am calling you forward into who you became because of it. You are not just healed, you are whole. You are not just surviving, you are becoming. You are not returning, you are rising. Let the silence mark the line between what was and what will now be. Because in it, I forged something eternal, and now it is time to live from it. You have become familiar with a voice that cannot be silenced, and a love that cannot be undone. You learned that the absence of noise is not the absence of purpose. You learned that in stillness, I wrote the deepest truths. You listened long enough that now your ears are tuned to grace. You no longer confuse delay with denial. You have come through the silence, not as one who endured a pause, but as one who emerged reborn. Now, when others panic in the quiet, you will anchor in peace. Now, when others question the unseen, you will speak of what is eternal. You are no longer shaped by what the world says is progress. You are shaped by what eternity says is presence. And I am with you still. Always. Even now. There comes a moment, not marked by loud declarations or sudden change, but by a quiet shift in the atmosphere of your soul. A realization so deep it doesn't need words. You are not who you were when the silence began. The silence was never the ending. It was the slow unfolding of something sacred. It was the unveiling of identity, forged not by applause or recognition, but by fire, stillness, and persistence. It did not destroy you, it delivered you. Every breath you took in uncertainty was counted. Every tear cried in solitude was bottled. Every aching moment of loneliness was not forgotten, it was used. Used to stretch you, refine you, and teach you how to trust without condition. Used to sever your dependence on signs and feelings. Used to plant faith so deeply that even storms could not uproot it. You thought you had been buried, but you were planted. You thought you had been left behind, but you were being sent ahead. You thought you had lost your voice, but I was tuning your spirit to hear my own. What you called isolation became incubation. In the silence, you learned to see with eyes that are not distracted by circumstances. You discovered how to walk in darkness with a flame that never burns out. And now, what was hidden must rise. What was whispered must echo. What was cultivated in stillness must be released in strength. You are not just free, you are equipped. You carry the oil of pressing seasons. You carry the fragrance of a soul purified by fire. You carry the voice of one who has wrestled in the dark and emerged with light. This world does not need more noise. It needs the clarity that comes from those who have known silence. It needs voices that tremble not with fear, but with reverence. You, the one who thought you had been forgotten, have been entrusted with a truth born from divine silence. That love does not abandon. That waiting is not punishment. That silence can be the language of mercy, and that the unseen holds the weight of eternity. You were prepared not to perform, but to carry presence. You were refined not to be noticed, but to be known by heaven. And heaven knows you. Heaven remembers you. Heaven has watched you grow in rooms no one applauded, in moments no one saw. You are known in the courts of glory. Your silence was a symphony heard in realms where angels worship. Now walk. Walk with the assurance that comes not from outcomes, but from intimacy. Walk with the fire of one who has stood in the cold and still believed. Walk with the wisdom that does not panic when answers delay. Because you are one who has walked with me in silence, and you are never alone. Now the silence lifts not because I speak louder, but because you have learned to carry my presence. Not because you were rescued, but because you rose. You rose while no one was watching. You believed when nothing moved. You trusted when hope felt foolish. And now, heaven honors what earth dismissed. You carry the testimony of a soul that did not abandon the altar. You remained when others walked away. You waited while others chased other voices. And I was watching. Every moment of Every act of worship multiplied, every silent cry answered in ways still unfolding. Your faith was not wasted. Your tears were not ignored. Your silence was not empty. It was filled with me, and now I fill you. With peace that surpasses understanding. With wisdom that confounds the proud. With courage that withstands the wind. With joy that does not tremble at the night. You are more than you once imagined. You are radiant with the residue of holiness, so step out. Step out not because the world now sees, but because you have already seen me. Step out because the silence has done its work. It has spoken. And it says this: you are chosen, you are ready, you are my beloved, and I am with you, always, even now. And the silence was never a void. It was the voice that led you home. When you dwelled long enough in silence, you begin to notice things that noise had hidden. You start to recognize what was always sacred but overlooked. You feel the weight of grace in places once considered empty. The smallest light becomes brilliant. The faintest whisper becomes holy. And what once felt like delay now feels like divine design. There is something holy about not rushing, about letting the soul unfold like dawn, slow, radiant, deliberate. You have learned this. The silence became a school for the heart. And you have graduated not with a certificate, but with clarity. You know now that what seemed like stillness was movement beneath the surface, that what felt like waiting was transformation, that what felt like loss was sowing. You have walked through seasons where prayers echoed back in silence, but your faith remained. You chose to trust not because you had proof, but because you knew my nature. That choice was not small. It resounded through eternity, and I have never missed a single step in the silence. You learned not to panic when doors remained closed. You stopped measuring time by how quickly things changed, and started measuring it by how deeply you were changing. You stopped asking, when, and started asking, who am I becoming in this? The answer was always this: you are becoming. Like me. Now, what comes next is not a reward for your endurance. It is the unveiling of who you truly are. There is no need to rush. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are right where eternity has placed you. And in this moment, I breathe into you again. Not with noise, not with spectacle, but with spirit, a deep breath, a sacred stillness, a renewal that cannot be shaken. The voices of the world will try to convince you to move faster, to be louder, to appear more, but you no longer bow to the gods of performance. You have been freed from the chains of urgency. You move at the pace of peace. You speak from the well of truth. You love from the overflow of grace. And that is enough. Let the world chase moments. You will dwell in presence. Let the noise try to define success. You will define it by surrender. Let others fear the silence. You will meet me there, because we have built something in the quiet that cannot be shaken, and what we have built, we will carry forward together. There is a sacred weight to everything you have walked through, not a burden but a substance, not a heaviness of despair but a fullness of understanding. The silence did not make you less, it made you more aware, more refined, more aligned with what matters. And now, as this journey continues, you no longer look for validation in the same places. You no longer chase what others define as blessing. You know what treasure truly is. You've tasted endurance. You've eaten the bread of sorrow, but you've also drunk deeply from the cup of presence. And now your soul knows the difference between noise and truth. You have walked the inner desert, where comfort is stripped and all that remains is what cannot be taken. Me, you have stood with nothing but my word, and you have not collapsed. You have let the fires come, and still, you remain. You don't just believe. I have become your reality, and that reality is unshakable. The silence forged, a clarity the world cannot counterfeit. You see with new eyes. You love with new depth. You speak not to be heard, but to pour. You don't fear stillness, you crave it, because in the stillness, we met, and in that meeting, you were made new. Let no one steal this sacred work. Let no moment of doubt diminish what has been grown. Let no season that shifts convince you that I have changed, for I do not change. My love does not expire. My purposes are not fragile. You were called not just to endure, but to overflow, to not merely walk through the fire, but to come out carrying embers that will ignite others. You carry fire now, not of destruction, but of renewal. Not the fire of wrath, but the fire of awakening. There is a glory reserved for those who did not quit in the dark, for those who kept coming, even without answers. For those who listened, even when the heavens seemed quiet. You are that soul. Heaven knows your name. Not because you were perfect, but because you stayed, because you waited, because you trusted my silence. And now you carry a wisdom that doesn't come from books. It comes from pain, and praise, and presence. You understand that some victories are invisible. that some battles are won in the stillness, that some healings begin with the breaking, and you no longer hide your scars, because now you know, scars are not signs of failure, they are signs that death did not win. You are not just redeemed, you are radiant, not because the world said so, but because I have called you so, and now every step you take is covered in grace. Every breath you release echoes eternity. I have walked with you through the long night, and now a new dawn breaks, because it is louder, but because you are ready to live unshaken, ready to love without fear, ready to walk in what has been planted. The silence was never wasted, it was sacred, and now from it we rise, together, even now. The journey through silence was never linear. It weaved through sorrow and revelation, through surrender and awakening, through questions and unshakable truths. You did not just survive it, you were sanctified by it. And now, as you continue forward, you carry a different weight, not the burden of waiting, but the mantle of intimacy. The silence carved out a sanctuary within you, not one made by hands, but by holy encounter. You are no longer who you were when this began, and that is not a loss. It is the evidence of resurrection. The old has passed, the shaken has been removed. What remains is eternal. What remains is me within you. Now you walk in a different rhythm. The world may still spin, frantic and loud, but you move slow, intentional, rooted, steady. You no longer grasp for every voice. You listen for only one. Mine. And because of that, you are becoming dangerous to darkness, not because of anger or noise, but because you have become a sanctuary in motion. Where you go, the residue of silence lingers, not the silence of absence, but the silence of reverence. You've learned to wait, you've learned to burn quietly, you've learned to endure the unseen, and the unseen is where I have hidden your greatest treasures. You are not living for attention, you are living from anointing. You are not striving for recognition, you are resting in revelation. This is what the silence taught you, that my voice does not compete with the world. It waits for the ones willing to listen, and you listened. You listened when no one celebrated. You waited when others hurried. You stayed when the door remained shut. So now I am opening new doors, not because you forced them, but because you were faithful when no doors moved. You have become one who can be trusted, trusted with truth, trusted with people, trusted with pain, trusted with purpose, because you no longer need stage or spotlight. You need only presence, and presence is what you carry now. You are the answer to prayers others are still afraid to speak. You are the evidence that waiting does not waste. You are the living testimony that silence holds power, so do not be afraid when others question your pace. You move with heaven, do not be shaken when the earth calls for noise. You dwell in whispers, do not doubt your steps, for everyone is guided by hands that shaped galaxies. The silence trained your spirit to hear me in the wind, in the pause, in the ache. And now that you hear, you will never unhear. You are walking in a new season, not just of recovery, but of release, not just of healing, but of holiness, not just of freedom, but of fullness. The silence refined your oil, and now you are a lamp that cannot be hidden. You carry peace like armor. You carry grace like a flame. You carry truth like a compass. You no longer fear the valley, because you met me there. You no longer avoid the waiting, because you were transformed there. You now know. The greatest encounters happen in obscurity. The deepest power is shaped in surrender. The most enduring light is kindled in quiet. Let this be your rhythm now. Stillness that stirs heaven. Obedience that moves mountains. Worship that needs no audience. Because you have learned what the silence was for. To unearth the eternal. To strip the false. To raise up the unshakable. Yes, you are not the one left behind. You are the one sent ahead, carrying seeds sown in sorrow, bearing fruit born of fire, and walking roads built by revelation. And still I walk with you. Even now you do not walk alone, though the silence was long, and the journey through the hidden valleys seemed endless. You never moved without me. Each step forward carved a deeper well of trust, and that trust has become your shelter, your strength, your foundation. Now you are not merely walking, you are carrying something eternal, something that cannot be shaken by what surrounds you, because it was born in what holds you. The silence did not simply teach you to endure, it taught you to abide, and in abiding you discovered the rhythm of heaven, slow, purposeful, sovereign. You are no longer rushing, you are resting while still rising. You don't reach in desperation, now you receive an assurance. You don't beg for signs, you carry certainty. You don't panic when things go quiet, you listen, because you have learned. Silence is not the absence of God. Silence is the atmosphere where God deepens his imprint, and you are marked by mercy. marked by fire, marked by the slow glory that formed when no one watched but heaven. You carry an authority that does not shines. You walk not with perfection, but with peace. And peace, true peace, is dangerous to fear. You are now the evidence that the dark seasons did not devour the light within you, that the stillness did not still your faith, that silence did not mean abandonment, it meant preparation. You are prepared, not for a show, not for applause, but for impact, for purpose, for pouring. You are the vessel that survived the shaping, the molding, the breaking, the purifying. You are not empty. You are full. Full of me, and I will pour you out, not to waste you, but to water dry places, not to use you, but to reveal me. Through you, your wounds became wells. Your silence became seed. Your patience became power. And now, the fruit will begin to show, not all at once, but faithfully, because you are faithful, because you remained, because you let me finish what I started in the unseen. So do not shrink when others question what you carry. They did not see the cost. They did not hear the nights. They did not walk the valleys, but I did. And I say, well done, not for what the world applauded, but for what heaven witnessed, for the quiet yes, for the unseen obedience, for the heart that beat for me even in silence. You are not forgotten. You are foundational. You are not hidden. You are holy. You are not behind. You are becoming. And this is still the beginning, because now from silence emerges strength. From surrender comes sacred authority. From the place where you once asked, where are you now? You say, here I am, not because you found all the answers, but because you found me, and that has become enough. You no longer define yourself by what moved around you, but by what stood within you. My word, unshaken, alive, permanent. So rise again. Take each step, not in striving, but in stillness. That has become your song. The silence trained you for this. Let it continue to speak through you, because the world still needs the voice that was born in the quiet place. And I still walk with you. Even now. You have journeyed far through the valley of silence, where every shadow held a question and every moment seemed to stretch endlessly into the unknown. Yet, in that place of seeming abandonment, a sacred work was done, one that only eternity could measure, and only a heart anchored in faith could understand. This silence was not the absence of love, but the presence of a love so profound it transcended noise and distraction. It was a crucible that refined your spirit, stripping away all that was temporary, all that was false, leaving behind the pure essence of who you were created to be. You have not simply survived the silence, you have been sanctified by it. Each breath, drawn in stillness, wove resilience into your soul. Each tear shed in solitude watered the soil of your becoming, and every unanswered prayer was a seed planted with divine purpose. Now, as the dawn breaks over your journey, you stand, not as the one who was forgotten, but as the one who was preserved, prepared, and crowned. The fire that once threatened to consume has transformed into a flame that lights the path for others. A fire that warms and renews rather than destroys. In this sacred space, you have discovered truths that words cannot fully capture. You have learned that waiting is not a punishment but a promise. That silence is not emptiness but a sanctuary. And that God's presence is not measured by sound but by faith. Your faith, forged in the quiet, has become a fortress. It holds you steady when storms rage around you. It anchors you when doubts arise. It reminds you that the story does not end in the fire, but in the glory that follows the eternal victory of a soul that remained faithful. Remember, the crown you wear is not earned by perfection, but by perseverance. It is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of unwavering trust. And though the journey may have been lonely, you were never truly alone. Every step was watched, every tear counted, every sigh known. So now, walk forward clothed in the fullness of this revelation. Carry the mantle of hope, the banner of love, and the torch of faith. You are a living testament to the power of divine patience and the promise of redemption. Your story is no longer one of silence, but of song. No longer of waiting, but of victory. No longer of loss, but of legacy. And in this legacy, God's glory shines brightest not in the absence of fire, but in the faithfulness through it. You are crowned by His presence. You are loved beyond measure. You are victorious beyond words. And this is only the beginning. The journey you have walked, through silence and shadow, has led you to a place of profound transformation. Every trial was a thread woven into the tapestry of your soul, a tapestry that God Himself has been crafting with infinite love and tender hands. This is the place where the fire no longer burns you, but purifies you, where every burden falls away, not through your own strength, but through the gentle power of divine grace. You are refined like gold in the furnace, not consumed, but made radiant. You are healed not by the absence of pain, but by the presence of love. In this sacred moment, know that your heart has been made whole. The scars you carry are no longer wounds, but marks of victory, proof that you have passed through darkness and emerged into light. Love has been your constant companion. It has whispered hope when despair threatened. It has held you steady when the ground shifted beneath your feet. It has been the quiet song beneath your every breath. And now, that love surrounds you completely. It flows through your veins. It fills every corner of your being. Purification is not just cleansing, it is a rebirth, a sanctification of your spirit, a renewal of your purpose, and a restoration of your soul. You are no longer bound by the chains of yesterday, no longer haunted by the shadows of your past, no longer afraid to step into the fullness of who you were created to be, because you are loved beyond measure. You are forgiven beyond understanding. You are held beyond any fear. And with this love, you rise, not because the journey was easy, but because love made you strong, because love made you whole, because love made you ready. The fire has passed, the smoke has cleared, and in its place stands a soul purified and radiant. Walk forward now, clothed in the unshakable peace that only love can bring. Walk with courage, knowing that you are forever held in the embrace of a love that never fails. This is your new beginning. This is your eternal home. This is the victory of the faithful, and in this love, you are complete, forever and always.